Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. Well, it's another day, another chaotic day in Canada, especially now that the Liberals are in power. It seems like all of a sudden everybody's talking about all of the things that we've been warning Canada about for the last 2.5, 3 months. Trump has come out pretty much saying that Carney called him and didn't just kiss the ring, but bent right over and kissed his arse, as well as a report that has come out, a readout of an interview that was held by The Atlantic, pretty much saying that, yes, Trump did interfere in our election, and yes, he got what he wanted. And after hearing some of the comments, you actually would kind of wondering, I think he wanted a Liberal majority so he can fulfill what he wants, which is to annex and crush Canada, which we know Carney is definitely on board and helping with, considering how invested he is in the States and how much he's divested out of Canada and helped the Liberal government to quash our resource sector. We're also going to dabble on a guy who has a TikTok, it's kind of a Snapchat thing. He has police reaching out to him, and what they will tell you, what you're going to hear, is going to shock you. Maybe not my subscribers, full-time subscribers, because I talk about this often, especially that pretty much every policing organization came out, which wasn't mentioned in mainstream. They didn't like talking about that. They were coming out supporting and endorsing the Conservative Party because they're the front line and they see what's going on. And they're forced by their oath that they can't actually jump up and be like, no, this is blah, blah, blah. They have to walk on eggshells when it comes to politics. Kind of like what that mayor did in Vancouver, although he screwed up because he knew what the problem was. He knew it's the government in power, and he should have known that's his job, is to protect people in Vancouver, and he fundamentally failed. He let them down because Liberals still picked up ridings there, which could have changed the entire demographic, and we could actually have a Conservative minority, which could have enacted change. So again, it is what it is. And then we got a whole bunch of other stuff we're going to dabble on. Let's just kick right off with Trump talking about the election.
President, as Prime Minister of Canada, ran against, not only against the Conservatives, but also against you. Yesterday, yesterday he spoke about American betrayal. Are you interested in rebuilding relations with Canada, and if so, how?
No, well, I think we're going to have a great relationship. He called me up yesterday. He said, "Let's make a deal." You know, he was running for office. They both hated Trump, and it was the one that hated Trump, I think, the least that won. I actually think the Conservative hated me much more than the so-called Liberal. He's a pretty liberal guy.
There you go. There you go. So after that phone call, Trump was like, "Oh, this is definitely the man I want to be dealing with. Elbows up, Canada. You've just put us on a roller coaster to the 51st state. But guess what? You're going to be riding it alone because Alberta and Saskatchewan are definitely making steps. Not Mo, but the citizens. They're joining. They're tired of it. And people from all over Canada are eager to move to the prairies." We'll listen to the last little wee bit of what he had to say.
But no, I spoke to him yesterday. He couldn't have been nicer, and I congratulated him. You know, it was a very mixed signal because it's almost even, which makes it very complicated for the country. It's a pretty tight race. But he's a very nice gentleman, and he's going to come to the White House very shortly, within the next week or less.
Mr. President.
So he didn't just kiss the ring. He bent right over and kissed Trump's arse. And he's eager to make a deal. The West can't move fast enough. Now we also have this readout that came from The Atlantic. And again, mainstream doesn't talk about this. We have been for the longest time, independent media. That's why I need you to like, share, and subscribe. Get the word out because people won't be able to make an educated choice, an informed choice, if they don't see and are witness to facts and reality. This is the Toronto Sun reporting on that readout. Donald Trump brags that he cost Pierre Poilievre the federal election. You know, until I came along, remember that the Conservatives was leading by 25 points, the American president boasted in an interview with The Atlantic published on Monday. Then I was disliked by enough of the Canadians that I've thrown the election into a close call, right? He told the publication ahead of the vote. I don't even know if it's a close call, which gives you the idea that he's actually wanting the Liberals to win. So amid all that, Trump started his 51st talk and then began imposing tariffs on Canada before branching out to other countries as the outlooks for global economies have significantly worsened amid the uncertainty. The U.S. leader drove many votes to the Liberals, which Carney capitalized on, and in his victory speech, the PM referred to the U.S. president as an ongoing existential threat for the whole nation, but declared that Trump will never break Canada. However, Trump's sovereignty threats continue. Now, this is just more proof. Trump wants Carney. Trump wants the Liberals. And it's even more proven that Trump is fulfilling every intent on economically crushing our country. Now, like I've said in previous episodes, if you're a new viewer, I urge you to go through there. There's lots of good stuff, and I've actually broke a lot of really good stories. Trump has gone around and purposely gone to countries that have been begging Canada for the last 7 or 8 years to export and sell them our resources, and not just oil and gas, but our critical minerals. He has secured about 75% of those contracts, so they're almost gone. We could probably still pick up a small contract here and there from those countries, but they've signed on to huge, huge contract deals with the States, who is selling our own resources at a huge rate of return, while we get peanuts, and our workers don't get any employment. We don't see any economic benefit. All the money goes down to the States through Brookfield's pipelines, which is paying Carney in dividends and share options. And American workers who are already seeing a booming economy like never before. Everything about that country is going to be built up while milking Canada dry. Elbows up, people. You can thank mainstream for that. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. This was a huge blow that broke today. I'm talking a huge blow.
We have breaking news.
Oh.
All right, the U.S. and Ukraine have just reached a minerals deal. It will grant the U.S. privileged access to new investment projects to develop Ukraine's natural resources, including aluminum, graphite, oil, and natural gas. We have breaking news.
I actually think Trump was holding off on a lot of the negotiations and the push. And I say that because of a lot of the information that I go through on a daily basis. I think he was holding off on ending the war until he secured this deal. He needs this deal to finish Canada off. Now he doesn't need any of our steel or aluminum. He doesn't need any of our rare earth and critical minerals. As well, he will have a surplus that doesn't even need to necessarily make it to American shores, that they will be making billions of dollars off through natural gas and oil. The big American oil companies will be setting up their own refineries and distribution and pipelines in Europe, and they will be getting a cut, which will increase the stock and shareholder price, which thus gives the greenback a stronger dollar value, reinforcing America's dominance on the world, where Canada should have been 25 years ago. He is literally crushing Canada, and the media is silent. And Carney wants this. This is why Alberta and Saskatchewan has to get serious about succession and independence, because the Liberals are going to try to reinforce and legislate more rules, making it impossible for those provinces to leave. He needs the free access because he can't nationalize it. He can't just take it because it's protected under the Constitution. But what he can do is he can suppress the people and just suck it dry at a cheap rate while they make record profits in their businesses in the States. And like I've stated on previous episodes and show the facts, the pipeline that your tax dollars built just so happenly got bought out, sold out huge shares to who? Brookfield. Your tax dollars even helped build the only pipeline that got built, which is not helping any workers. It's just shipping our oil out of Canada. And who's making money? Carney, his investors, and Brookfield. So business groups have been warning for a long time. They actually, now they're screaming. They're screaming because I'm pretty sure most of them thought that Poilievre was going to win. But now that it's written in stone that Carney and the Liberals are staying in power, they are screaming from the rooftops. Businesses Group warns Canada risks further stagnation under the Liberal minority government. The Coalition of Concerned Manufacturers and Businesses Canada, CCMBC, expressed deep concern following the Monday federal election that returned a minority Liberal government under Prime Minister Mark Carney, calling the outcome a blow to the country's economic future. CCMBC President Catherine Swift said continued commitment to the net zero agenda and expanding regulatory controls would further stagnate both economic growth and Canadian standard of living. The net zero climate agenda, coupled with big government and regulatory overreach, has proven itself to be disastrous for the economy generally, and is especially harmful to the small and medium-sized businesses community. We have seen businesses bankrupt at record levels and flee the country. We are losing our best working class. They have been leaving the country. I personally have friends that have left the country, and right now I'm seeing people within the separation movement from other provinces that are pretty much stating that they're getting ready to they're shrinking all of their assets, selling off a pile of stuff, getting ready to list their homes. And if Alberta and Saskatchewan aren't at least within the first initial steps to prove they're ready to succeed, they are fleeing to the States. She warned that if Carney maintains policies reminiscent of what she called Canada's lost decade under former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the country could see even more business flight and economic stagnation. She goes on to say about how we're going to see huge increases in inflation, which is going to decimate even more, what's left of our middle class. And a whole bunch of other. This is a great article, Western Standard. Like always, I always post everything in the description below. And I'm glad to see that a lot of other independent outlets are starting to do the same thing. It not only helps give you credibility, but it makes sure that your audience has access to that information. Because some people don't want to sit back and watch a 45-minute show. They would rather just be able to take a actual link and show the evidence. It's a lot quicker and easier that way. Although I do urge you to like, share, and subscribe. Not only does it help grow the channel, It gets the word out, and we can break the propaganda bubble. Moving along. More and more election irregulatory, like just, we'll just call it what it is, illegal. Like, they're breaking the law. And there's piles of these videos that are coming out. I'm hoping every single one of the people who have these, because they need the actual raw recording, I hope they send it in to not just the police, but the RCMP, to Elections Canada, to every single organization to try to get these people charged. And again, we need stricter laws, not a slap on the wrist. People must have the fear of God put in them, that if they ever did this, they are going to go to jail. That's how you stop crime. You don't stop it by just giving them a little slap on the wrist. They'll try again. You incarcerate them. You hurt them. Then they go, I'm not doing that again. It stops crime. Some of this video is just crazy. Trying to hide it, hiding it in his back pocket, just in case someone comes to the door. Canada flag. Ooh, elbows up, elbows up. I just screwed you. Elbows up. I just affected the entire democratic process. I'm a fascist. Elbows up. But it doesn't end there. We've got more and more videos. Some of this stuff is just ridiculous.
What do you mean? I don't understand.
Watch her reaction when she realizes she's busted.
What do you mean? I don't understand. I want to understand why these are just sitting on the street, how you took them into a taxi, and you guys could just fill out anything you want and put them in the box? Is this a normal election? This is how elections are run? This is a complete fraud.
Why don't you go and speak to the people inside? They'll be happy to take care of you. We are working here. You're not allowed to...
I'm on public property. I can film whatever I want. And you guys are walking around with ballot boxes in a taxi? Wow.
I can't believe you're doing that.
What do you mean?
Again,
I don't
hope this gets sent in. We need these people charged. This isn't just irregular. This is wrong. How can people possibly be like transporting? There's no oversight at all on these people. We need them identified. We need their accounts exposed to see, are they liberals? Are they conservatives? Why were they allowed to do this without any scrutiny, any oversight? This leaves a lot of room for people to go, holy crap, they're cheating in our electorate. Which I won't, how can you deny it when you see stuff like that? That's actual ballots. It's scary times. And then you get stuff like this. Northern communities. And this, I'm finding more and more people have been complaining about this in not just the 5 areas that I'm going to show you on this article. I lost my legal right to vote. Booths closed early or didn't open at all in some Nunavik villages. Election Canada cites weather and difficulty recruiting local teams as the source of the challenges. Hey, Elections Canada, you had one job. One job. Protect the most important part of a democracy, which is our right to vote for elected officials. Unbelievable. Aaliyah Luzon doesn't trust the government or the electoral system, but still, she turned up Monday to the polling station in Poilievre, Quebec to have her say. I do know it's the smallest right that I have offered to me and fought for me by other Indigenous activists over the course of decades, Luzon said. And she's right. We have one of the weakest democracies there is. We only have one voted. I mean, every other part of our system is appointed by whatever government is in power. And we're seeing that right now. We're seeing 9-year rule. 90-some% of the Senate is all liberal. There's no elected. They're all appointed. I know in my area, we wanted to elect. The second Justin found that out, he raced and appointed one, taking that right from us. This is fascist. This is what socialists do. And the person he appointed, trust me, is not wanted in my area. And he did this to a lot of other areas as well. Lauzon, who's formerly based in Kujik, was motivated to vote when she saw an Indigenous candidate, a Cree woman, running in her riding. The riding was held by a Bloc Québécois for 2 terms now, but when Lauzon returned up to the polls, she was told it was closing around 2:30 p.m., 7 hours before it was supposed to, as listed in under the Canada Elections Act for districts in her Eastern time zone. I was looking forward to that ability, but now you know what? I'm just mad, she said. Now it goes on how 4 other communities have stated the same thing, like here in Selawit. The recreational coordinator, Mary Pabekatuk, said residents only had an hour and 15 minutes to vote before workers packed up and left at 2:30. So it's not that they weren't open. There were people there. Why are you leaving? How about you pay them overtime, double time, triple time, whatever it takes to ensure these communities have their constitutional right to vote? She was in the village office the whole time and saw less than 70 people vote during that short window. In the 2021 census, Selawit's population was around 1,600 people. This needs to be looked into. There needs to be an investigation. And people need to know what votes were the ones in there. Did people know that that polling station was closing down? Certain party members or voters, let's say? We need to look into this. This, again, puts more scrutiny and just exposes our election system is not working. Something's not right. Something smells rotten in the state of 51st Canada. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Now, the longest ballot. They're out bragging. Now, I'm still working on this. This is a deep, deep rabbit hole. Oh my Lord. These are scary tactics that were used. And this is all bullshit. This is once again the media picking up on a story purposely to try and give the narrative they want, like the fact of what they're saying. Oh, no. It wasn't used against the Conservatives. No. They were using it against, it was actually against Trudeau. These are lies. I've already exposed it in the first episode that I did on this. This is an outright lie. This proves it. Longest ballot group declares victory in Poilievre's former riding amid criticism. Now, careful the way they word it. I'm going to read it, but you'll understand the propaganda as I blurb this crap out. A group trying to make a case for electoral reform by creating very long ballots is declaring victory in this week's election, even as critics accuse it of indulging in stunts that undermine democracy. Now, no mention that the fact that they broke a minimum of 3 electoral laws and more from what I'm looking into. I'm not a lawyer, so take all that with a grain of salt, but I did look through the laws and they're breaking a pile of them here. Call it a gray area, if you will. They're still, it's gray enough that we need to either strengthen the laws or charge these people for doing this. It's been a success, said Mark Motor, one of the dozens of protest candidates who ran in the Ottawa riding of Carleton. I've never seen people looking more optimistically at electoral reform ever. Do you see how they just did that? They switched the narrative. No, that is not what people are talking about. People are saying exactly what I'm saying. How is this even legal? And why was it done only in the leader of the opposition's riding, where we've already heard people coming out saying they were purposely, Liberals were purposely picking out on immigrants and certain demographics and lying to them, saying it doesn't matter if you're a citizen, they will deport you. He's a little Trump. But again, all of the heads of the police and RCMP are all appointed. You won't get justice if there's no true democratic process or democratic way to make sure that we're electing and removing people within these organizations for not doing their job. You can read the whole article. I post everything, like always, below. Now, this is kind of fascinating. I knew this As a conservative, I don't like divisive politics. But Carla Joy Treadway wrote this so eloquently, I'm going to bring it up. And again, I urge you to like, share, and subscribe, because a lot of liberals' heads would explode if they actually knew the truth about who they tried not to get into power. I love that Pierre Poilievre didn't make his gay dad, his gay or black or indigenous MPs, his immigrant wife, or his child with disabilities the most important thing about the campaign. He didn't talk about himself in depth, list his degrees, or explain why he knew more than everyone else. He focused on his policies and what they would do for his country. He focused on Canadian stories and what they were telling him about what they needed. He didn't virtue signal or lean on identity politics like liberals do, and he didn't center the campaign around himself. He focused on what Canada as a whole needed. Pierre had a genuine, really honest and unifying campaign message, and you could see how he genuinely cared about people of all walks of life. We were so close to getting a really amazing leader. I could not have worded that better myself, and I thank you so much for writing that the way you did. And again, it's sad that we need to bring these topics up, like this type of divisive topics up. I don't brag about all of my friends that are gay or why all of the conservatives that I know, like all of my friends, don't care. All they want is equality. Merit-based society based on equality. But the liberals use it as a tactic, fear, hate, and division, which they were perpetuating again with the help of their propaganda media to try and smear the conservatives. It's so sad, and I'm glad that, like I said, that she wrote it the way she did. Now, this is really shocking. This is Life with Sundrin. This guy has built a huge following, and he deserves it and more. Again, I'll post his link down below, especially if you live in the Ontario province. He's grew so big that he's made kind of little groups where they can film and send it out to warn people in cities when crime is happening, to try and save people from having their houses broken in, beat up, shot, or their vehicles stolen. He's created a safety network and a place for voices to be heard. And now police have been reaching out to him. And what they've sent him is jaw-dropping.
From across Canada feel defeated. Look at this from a police officer in Hamilton, Ontario. I've been huge fans of Mario and yourself throughout this entire ordeal. I'm truly lost for words at the outcome of last night and feel so defeated. I'm a police officer in downtown Hamilton, Ontario, and I feel like my profession has literally become useless under the Liberals, thanks to Bill C-75 and C-5. The frustration frontline officers feel every shift, knowing that even if we catch these thug scumbag criminals, they walk right out the door before I can even finish the report. I simply can't understand for the life of me how fundamentally unintelligent people who voted for Liberal again after watching Canada become an overpriced third world country right before our eyes. Thank you for the awareness you have brought to the masses, and keep doing what you're doing. Talks about the death of the OPP officer up north of Hamilton, Ontario. We were both in police college together, hit the road at the same time. When he was murdered in cold blood by a disgusting repeat offender who had several firearms charges and a litany of other violent offenses, only to have the judge release him, citing he was a victim of colonialism, and then proceeds to murder a brand new officer with his whole life and career ahead of him. This could have all been prevented if it wasn't for the Liberal government and their policies. These judges and justice of the peace need to start being liable for the release of the garbage they let back into society to terrorize our streets.
Now, he's absolutely right. And this is something I've said often on a lot of previous episodes. If you're a new subscriber, like I say all the time, I urge you to go down and check it out. I broke a lot of good stories and I expose a lot of the the mainstream lies, the propaganda. We have the ability in Canada, all countries do, to actually have judges go through a series of not tests, but just using their own record to see if they should be given positions of power. If they have a huge repeat offender rap sheet under their decisions, they should be held accountable for it and removed and never allowed to work in that position again. Send them back out. They can be a prosecutor or whatever. If they are punishing people too much, the same thing would apply. We have stats, and now with computers, come on, let alone AI, there is no reason that we could have judges that are doing this. And it would expose the government. It would remove them from appointing loser judges like this that are allowing this to happen. These judges should be allowed to speak their mind, but they're appointees. It's disgusting. Look at our Supreme Court. If you kill somebody, you get life. But guess what? If you're going to do it in mass, because you'll only get life. The more you kill, the less value that each life has. Who in their right mind could even come up with such an idea, let alone force that on an entire nation? And then you get these fascists that jump on it. They love this because they want chaos. They live off of fear, hate, and division. So sad.
About 2 years ago, a story broke in Hamilton of an officer using excessive force and was charged with assault. The victim in the matter has a rap sheet longer than the Old Testament, including several firearms charges, violent assaults, failing to comply with probations, failing to comply with whatever piece of paper the judges hand to him time after time. This individual is a true threat to the public and safety of others. Well, shocking, about 3 weeks ago, this individual was back at it again, carjacking an innocent man at gunpoint, stealing his F-150, going on another rampage throughout downtown, was then involved in another point firearm incident and yet another stolen vehicle incident, which resulted in a pursuit during rush hour, putting countless of lives at risk. Thankfully, he was arrested. The person has used his indigenous heritage as a way of getting a lesser sentence, conditions upon his countless releases for violent crime. Another one, and probably one that hits home the most. Police officers from around the country have reached out to me. They feel betrayed. They feel helpless, where they are putting their lives on the line to protect our families and our children, and this is allowed to continue to happen. We need to hold this government accountable, and we need to change the laws. We have to do everything we can. If our own police officers cannot feel empowered to protect us, how can we feel safe in the society? How can we feel safe with our families and children?
And he's absolutely correct. The media was hiding that information from Canadians, that pretty much every single policing organization came out endorsing Poilievre. And then you get wimps like the mayor in Vancouver, who's like, well, I don't want to make it political, but we need changes. He stated the changes he needed. They need stiffer laws. They need to remove this 10 years of legislation that has been forced upon Canadian citizens and get back to real law, real order. And he didn't. And because he didn't, the Liberals took a pile of seats in those ridings. Right after that Vancouver driver incident, which, by the way, I urge you to watch one of my previous episodes where I explained to you pretty much the entire story of what created that problem to begin with, and how the government has purposely gone out of its way to make this happen. They feed off chaos. These mongers, these fascist mongers, feed off of fear, hate, and division. And now that Vancouver, your mayor failed you by not making a political point of it. He's not held by oath like the officers and RCMP are. He has the right and the ability. In fact, his job being mayor is to protect and advance the people who put him in that seat. And he failed miserably. That could have changed the entire country if he would have made a point of just exposing who created the problem and who's actually responsible for that mass casualty event. Watch that episode if you haven't. You're going to shake your head, you're going to lean back in your chair, and your heart's going to hurt. I guarantee you. Our system is broken. It's shattered. And we've just allowed them to come, this government to come right in, cover up all of the scandals. What's going to happen to SDTC? We'll never find out. What about the over, 700 and some billion dollars that disappeared? What about the Chinese bank investments? What about, we have so much money unaccounted for, so many scandals that we need to expose and get people, actually put politicians in jail. And because of the lack of kahunas of politicians like that mayor, here we are. Scary times, scary world, and our country is the worst of it all. A crying shame what has been allowed to happen to our nation thanks to the propaganda media. Sad state of affair. Sad state of affair. I hope you liked today's episode. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you have, make sure you punch that notification bell. That way you don't miss any future episodes. The way we get around the suppression and the censorship is by liking and sharing and subscribing. This, helping all of us small independent media and take away viewers from the propaganda mainstream, is the only true way we can end up with a real democracy and a transparent government. I'm Alias Tagai. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.